What if you could get 30 years of stock market wisdom from a veteran who has literally seen it all? What do you think he'd tell you? Well, we're about to find out. We're going to distill the biggest lessons from Angel One's Dinesh Thakkar into a super simple guide for the next generation of Indian investors. And it all kicks off with one powerful, familiar warning that a lot of us probably grew up with.
The stock market is very risky. Yeah, that sounds familiar, right? For so many of us, this is the advice we've heard our entire lives. It's that well-meaning warning passed down from our parents, a deep-seated fear that's kept entire generations of Indians on the sidelines while others were building serious wealth.
But that creates a huge problem, doesn't it? In a growing economy like India's, if you're told to stay away from the very thing that's creating all this wealth, then how in the world are you supposed to build your own financial future? That's the big question we're going to tackle. To find the solution, we first have to understand where that fear even comes from. See, this isn't just random caution. It's a fear that's rooted in a very specific and painful history that left some long-lasting scars on the Indian investor. Just look at this timeline. It was a real trial by fire. Dinesh Thakkar started his business just 1 year before the infamous Harshed Mehta scam blew up. He talks about how that single event wiped out countless investors, and it took the market 5 to 6 years to recover. And then, more scams in the 2000s just hammered home the message for an entire generation. The stock market is a dangerous place.
So, fast forward to today. A new generation comes along. You're aware of the risks, but you're also really eager to make money. And in all that excitement, you're likely to fall into what Thakkar calls the single biggest trap for any new investor.
You know the drill. We've all seen it. You find some big-name investor's portfolio online, you see the stocks that made them famous, and you think, hey, I'll just buy those. So you copy their holdings, but instead of making a killing, you end up losing money. So what went wrong? Well, it comes down to one crucial piece of information that you will never have.
You're missing the magic ingredient, their entry point. Thakkar calls this the magic of the investment. It's not just what they bought, it's when and at what price they bought it. And those are details that are never, ever made public. Here's the tough reality. By the time a star investor's portfolio is public knowledge, you're probably buying in at a super high price, often at the exact moment they might be getting ready to sell. So you've got the right stocks, but your timing is completely wrong. So if that doesn't work, what does? Well, this all leads to Thakkar's solution, which is so powerful because of how simple it is. He basically argues that the best way to build wealth is to stop trying to be a stock-picking genius.
Look, you basically have two paths you can go down. On one side, you have stock picking. It's high effort, high risk, and you have to be watching it constantly. On the other side, you've got index investing. It's low effort, it's diversified, and you do it systematically with an SIP. The choice seems pretty obvious, but so many of us still chase that thrill of finding the next big thing.
And if you're still not convinced, get this. Thakkar says that over his 30 years in the business, a staggering 90% of retail investors fail to beat a simple market index in the long run. 90%! Even professional fund managers struggle to do it. So what makes us think we can?
So what's the winning formula? It's actually pretty straightforward. First, use a systematic investment plan, an SIP, to invest on a regular schedule. Second, just choose broad market indices. They give you a piece of hundreds of companies all at once. Third, and this is a big one, don't even try to time the market. In fact, you should keep investing when the market dips. And finally, just be patient. Let the power of compounding do all the heavy lifting for you while you focus on what you're actually good at, your career.
Okay, so this strategy of simple, systematic investing, it's already super powerful on its own. But it becomes almost a no-brainer when you see it in the context of the massive economic shift that's happening in India right now.
Think about our parents' generation. For them, building wealth meant one thing: physical stuff. Any extra money went straight into property, gold, and maybe a few fixed deposits. Equity? That was a tiny, almost forgotten slice of the pie. But now? Wow! It is a completely different story. We're in the middle of this historic transfer of wealth. The new generation's extra income, the money left over after buying a home, it's all flowing into financial assets like stocks and mutual funds.
And there's a really good reason for this change. Thakkar points out that even if you include the absolute worst market crashes in history, Indian stocks have historically delivered a 14 to 15% compound annual growth rate. That consistently beats the pants off the typical returns you'd get from real estate.
So, we've talked about the fear, we've talked about the big mistake, and we've talked about the simple solution.
But Dinesh Thakkar leaves us with one final profound lesson that kind of redefines the entire goal of investing in the first place.
When someone asks him where he invests his own money, his answer is pretty shocking. You'd think he'd have some complex, diversified portfolio, right? Nope. He puts his capital right back into his own business, the one thing he understands better than anyone else. He is all in on himself.
And that makes you think, doesn't it? If you can put your wealth creation on autopilot with simple index funds, where should your real energy and focus be going every single day?
Because here's the thing, the ultimate portfolio, he suggests, isn't something you hold in a demat account. The greatest returns you'll ever get will come from investing in your own career, in your skills, in your life experiences, and in your family. The stock market, that's just the engine you build on the side to help pay for that real life.
And that brings us to his final, and maybe most important lesson. Money isn't just for piling up, it's for living. It's a tool, a means to an end. It's for cars, for vacations, for experiences. Because at the end of the day, if you spend your whole life just trying to make money, when are you actually going to live?